Hey, it's Brad here with Alt-In Technologies. Today I'm going to talk about the blacklisting and whitelisting features in SecurityGateway. Specifically, what we're going to cover in this particular lesson is how to quickly import blacklist and whitelist entries from a comma delimited file or a CSV file. This makes it very easy to populate the data in SecurityGateway without having to go in and manually enter each item separately in SecurityGateway. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. First of all, there are two areas where we are going to import data. The first one, if I take you here, here's my SecurityGateway. If we go to the security menu, and then if we scroll down, we have a couple of sections toward the bottom. We have blacklist and whitelist. And as you can see here, you can blacklist items by address, host, or IP address. Same thing with the whitelist feature. You can whitelist addresses, hosts, or IP addresses. Now notice if I click on one of these entries, for example, the blacklist addresses, blacklist hosts, we don't have any items listed here yet. Also notice, by the way, that if we were to have any data populated, this data could be populated or applied basically on a global basis or on a per domain basis as indicated by this drop down menu that I'm showing you here. So I want to get some data into these various screens, but I don't want to have to go in and enter each item one at a time. There's also another area where we want to import data automatically from a CSV file. Say, for example, I want to add information for a particular user. So, for example, if I go to my domains and users here, and I select a particular user, this is my domain that I have in SecurityGateway, and this particular domain, because it's a test server, has two users. So we'll click on users, or two users, and then we'll highlight the name whose entries we want to update. Now, actually, let me widen my screen here a little bit here. And this particular user has a user specific, well, every user has a user specific whitelist and blacklist. And further, that information can also be imported and exported. So in addition to adding entries to my whitelist and blacklist under the security menu that I just showed you, I want to also add an entry for this particular user's blacklist in this case. So for example, if I click on blacklist for Frank Thomas, there aren't any entries listed here, but this is the user-specific blacklist, so I'm going to populate some data here as well. So now that I've covered what exactly I'm going to bring into SecurityGateway, let me show you what we're going to import, and that is this file right here. Okay, and the reason I'm showing you this file, I want you to be aware of the formatting. So, and I did some trial and error on my end so that I could do this demonstration for you, because a couple of things. When you do an export from SecurityGateway to a CSV file, these column headers will have quotation marks around them. However, when you do an import, you'll want to have your column headers without quote marks. And I did some testing with double quotes. I did it with single quotes, and this format here without the quotes is what works. So you'll want to have a column heading for your domain, for user, IP, value, type, and comments. So what we want to do in this example, say for example, I want to blacklist an entry for that pertains only to example.com. It does not pertain globally, or does not apply globally, only to my example.com domain. All right? Well, let's say I want to blacklist any mail from any address that's on this domain. Well, I've added a wildcard entry here, an asterisk at whatever domain I want to block. And then under type, I've included where I've placed blacklist address domain. Okay? And on the next line down, I've got another address that I'm blacklisting, again specifically for the example.com domain. And in this case, instead of using a wildcard, I've added the full email address. And again, I've included blacklist address domain. And then the next line down, notice under domain it's blank. What that means is that entry applies globally. Okay? So in this case, I'm blacklisting all email from this address, this blacklist1@example.com, globally, meaning for all domains that SecurityGateway is protecting. And then under type, we include blacklist address global. Notice the capitalization here as well. And if you have any comments, you can put them under the comments column. All right? So I've done the same thing for the next line down. In this case, I've blacklisted a host. Now, recall that in SecurityGateway, you can blacklist addresses, hosts, and IPs. And under the value column, you can enter either a host name or an email address. When you import this file, SecurityGateway will know the difference and will place them accordingly, whether it's a host or whether it's an address. If you're blacklisting an IP address, however, you will want to include it under the IP column as shown, for example, in this entry right here. And again, these are just hypothetical values, so I'm going to blacklist all mail coming from this particular IP address. Also notice under the type column that we say blacklist IP global. Now, if I went to blacklist all mail from a particular IP, but only for the example.com domain, as indicated by this line here, then again we put our IP address, and then we say blacklist IP domain. And again, we add our comments. The same concepts apply to whitelist entries as well. So again, here is a global whitelist entry. As you can see, there's no domain listed here. We have the email address that we want to whitelist. We spell out, or we type in whitelist address global, and then any comments that we want right here. Okay? And in this example, on this line, I've made the entry domain specific. I've included the domain under the domain column in the far left-hand side here. I've included the address I want to whitelist, and then we put in whitelist address domain, and then any comments. So again, keep in mind this is, if I scroll up a little bit, that's the type entry. So you want to make sure that all your types match what you're trying to do, whether it's whitelist or blacklist, and whether it's IP or address or host, or whether it's domain or global. All right, so that's the formatting for the whitelist and blacklist entries on a global or per domain basis. And if you want to blacklist or whitelist an entry for a specific user, then this line right here shows you how to format that. Okay, so again, we put in our domain on the far left-hand column. In this case, I want to blacklist all mail coming from a particular email address for this user, frankthomas@example.com. Okay, so recall that the column header is user. Okay, so we put the user's email address in this blank here, and then we put in the address that we wish to blacklist under the value column. Okay, and then under type, we select what we want to do: blacklist user, blacklist host, whatever it is we're doing. In this case, I'm blacklisting all mail from that particular address, so I've put blacklist user, and then any comments on the right-hand side. All right, and then what we do after that, of course, we want to make sure and export that file as, or save that file as a comma delimited file, CSV. So for example, if I go to save as, let me make this window a little smaller so you can see it here. Okay, and make sure that save as type is comma delimited CSV, and then hit save. I'm just going to save over the entry I already have, and then we'll replace it. And we'll click OK here. And that's okay. We'll click on yes. All right, so I've got my CSV file formatted. Now let's go back into SecurityGateway. And it doesn't matter what screen you hit import on. We're going to press the import button to import this information. I'm going to go back down and show you how that's done. If we go to the security menu and we go back to our blacklist and whitelist, just click on any one of these entries. They will all give you the option to import. The only reason I'm going down here to this entry under the security menu as opposed to doing it via the particular account, is because there are fewer items along the top, and it fits better on in my window that I'm recording here, so that we don't have to do a lot of scrolling around. All right, so now let's click on import. All right, and now let's browse to the CSV file that we've just created. So we'll hit browse. Okay, and I've saved that file to my desktop. So here it is. We select it. We click on open. Okay, and then we select import lists. Okay, and these are the results. This tells you that this amount of data was added. 14 items were added from the file. 0 items were skipped. Okay, and then we hit close. All right, so let's see what happened. Notice now we have a blacklist entry under the blacklist addresses for the globally. And if we go on the domain specific drop down here and we select our domain, here are our domain specific entries that we had in the file. Same thing applies to our hosts, and again domain specific as well, and our IPs. And if we go to the whitelist, we can see the same information that we've imported from our file. And if we go to our user, again we go to setup users, and then we go to domains and users, and we go back to that Frank Thomas user who I was looking at earlier. And then if I go to the blacklist or whitelist entries, here's the entry that I had for the specific user in the spreadsheet. So this is a quick way to get all that information into Security Gateway without having to manually type out that information. Be sure that your formatting is correct, though. That's the number one thing to look out for, is that these column headers are formatted properly. In other words, don't put quotation marks around them. Just type them out, domain, user, IP, value, type, and comments, and then save it as a CSV. And then you should be fine for importing. So thanks for watching, and have a great day.